Listen.
Well, the airplane will crash if you don't put your
son of
phone
a
in the
bitch.
right mode. We're recording on a transatlantic flight. This is 1Upsmanship. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Swaim.
I'm the other one, surprised to find we're recording, Adam Ganzer.
And with us today is our very special guest.
Hi, I'm Tom Reimann.
But wait, if you're the guest and you're the co-host, who's flying the plane?
Who's in the cockpit?
It's an extenuation of my cell phone joke. What are you loading up there, Adam?
I'm loading up Dead Space 1, just on Wikipedia.
No, that sounds like the game. You're going to just fuck off?
Just the Wikipedia of it.
Son of a bitch.
Yes, today we are covering Dead Space.
Yeah.
Which, of course, was not called, I don't think, Dead Space 1, like, predictively.
No.
Just Dead
It was
Space.
not. That would have been a real shot call.
Yeah, they didn't call their shot that dramatically when the first
It's not
game
like
came
World
out.
War One, where they're like, yeah, it's coming.
Well,
Don't
they
worry.
called it the Great War. This game wasn't called the Great Space.
They called it the Great War Rises, and they promised 2 and 3.
Can we admit, though, that calling it the Great War is also a kind of calling your own shot? You know what I mean? Like,
There will
this
never
is
be.
the great one.
Well, yes, Saddam called that bomb the mother of all bombs.
No, that was Trump recently, right when he started office,
No,
right?
sorry.
No. It's been called that for a while because
Oh, we've had multiple Moabs?
Bush Senior
Yes.
references Moab, yeah. But that has nothing to do with Dead Space.
Or
Anyway,
everything
So,
to do with it.
conspiracy theory incoming.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in and asphyxiate in the vacuum of space horribly, eyes bulging out, Total
Many
Recall
times.
style.
Jesus Christ.
As we do our speed run, we usually ask if the guest can do the speed run, and Tom
Sure.
seems fairly intimate with this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna start the clock and ask you to just tell people what is this game.
Sure. You play as Isaac Clarke, who is an engineer who is part of a 3-man task force to go to the Ishimura, which is a ship that is a planet cracker, planetary mining vessel. And as you play through the game, you gradually learn that everything has gone fantastically wrong, and Isaac has to fight his way through it. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Stop the clock.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You went plot first instead of gameplay first. That's always interesting to me, but I do think this is one where the plot is what is compelling.
Yeah.
But I would add that
It's both.
No, there's gameplay innovations, of course. We'll get to it. But I would just add that it's survival horror.
Yes.
And it's
No.
third person.
It's a third-person survival horror action game where the primary objective is to sever the limbs of your enemies, and it's not to score headshots, which is the normal
Right. That was
Yeah.
the cool thing about
right
this game.
that you would normally think is the thing, and also you can stomp bodies apart to
Yeah.
keep them from reanimating,
Yes.
which
Well,
was
let's
another
yeah.
innovation.
We'll unpack that after the rants.
Yep.
So, who's player one? Adam has a glint in his eye, but I can go if you don't
No,
want
I
to.
think you should because I realized I didn't have it all there yet. It's half there.
I showed up today feeling unprepared for this.
Yeah.
But Adam now seems off his game. I didn't think you.
I think it was the starting. I was like booting on my computer and
I'm surprised you have the Wikipedia up, as did I, which is how I know Ishimura translates to Stone Village.
Sure.
that very helpful.
And that's my rant. No, let's pass that checkpoint. And I'll be player one this time and give my rant, which is that, so you know my perspective going into the whole episode. I don't like survival horror games. It generally, and there are a few exceptions, and this is one of them. Is this Capcom?
No,
No,
this is EA.
Yes.
EA.
EA
well,
Redwood Shores,
Jeez.
subsequently known as Visceral Games.
I'm going to want to talk about that too, because that's very interesting to
Yep.
me.
Isn't
It's
it?
in the game. But I love Alien. I love Warren Ellis, who wrote the story on this. And I was willing to deal with... It says a lot that I was willing to deal with the terror the whole time, because I've also just played the RE2 remake, Resident Evil.
Nope.
And I'm not going to go into too much detail, because I'm sure we'll cover it.
We are
but-
definitely going to cover that.
but,
we should.
yeah, we should. But it has moments that are scary, but feels more like adventuresome.
Yeah.
This is the survival horror game. I know Alien Isolation will be brought up probably in the comments, which I
and
haven't
in the
played.
course of this episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But this is the one I played that I was the most scared which usually makes me want to turn the game off because I don't play games for that feeling, which is crazy because I love horror movies. But I don't like the feeling of being chased. And yet,
Yep.
I was like, I have to go through all this because I need to know what happens. So I think it's got a great plot. That's basically my rant.
Okay.
We'll pass another checkpoint. What are the checkpoints in the interacting with the terminal?
They're basically just like taking yet another terminal ride to yet another unknown
right.
destination.
A tram ride?
Yeah.
Well, you can access the Ishimura vending machine
That's true.
and
All right,
buy things.
So
yeah,
we'll say
using their
this.
credit system.
As we transition from rant to rant, please do not turn off or reset this podcast.
Nope.
Who wants to jump in? Tom, Adam? I'm looking for volunteers. Who's P2?
I think Tom should do
Someone's
it.
got to jam the controller in my plug hole.
Oh, wow.
I mean, well,
wow.
that's
Oh,
a big
wow.
invitation right there.
Wasn't necessarily prepared to do a player 2 rant.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is more like what's the game mean to you? Why were you excited to talk about it?
I don't know. This game hit me in a really good place at a really bad time in my life. This game released in October of 2008.
Yep. Obama was not yet president.
He was about to be.
We're in Bush era right now.
We're in Super Bush era.
Yeah.
This game released when I was in the longest stretch of unemployment of my life. So I was really open to things that had like a deep story and universe for me to attach to because my real life was so fucking depressing. And this game, I don't know, it fed that need. And then also it was innovative in terms of it had like a hub system. It's technically a linear game, whereas you go from level to level, but you can revisit previous levels.
I believe it's the only game where you do literally follow a line. On the
Yeah,
Yes.
that was one of its big innovations.
Yep.
Is it give you a line?
It's quite linear.
Yep. But you also can revisit previous areas. And the way that it handles enemies, where you can dismember them, was neat. And it didn't define the enemies for you in the instruction manual or anything. So you had no idea what you were going to face.
Right.
And you didn't know what their weak spots were because this game was very much geared towards headshots won't do you anything. So the head of any given monster was not its weak point. You had to like cut its arms and legs off.
It forced you to do that.
It really
This
did.
game forced you.
Oh yeah, it did. But I didn't feel like I was being cheated
Oh no.
when it
No, it's the
had me
core
do that.
dynamic.
I didn't miss the headshot in this
No,
game.
like it. There was just something about the story, which is a vague indictment of Scientology, and then also the aesthetic of it, which I really enjoyed. I'm a big fan of Alien. I like horror in space. I think space is terrifying.
And that's not the only reason we both mention Alien. It
There's
takes
a
a
lot of
lot of
reasons.
plot cues from Alien.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yes, for sure.
There's a lot.
It's a good horror story.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty well contained in the single episode. Even though the parts 2 and 3, I think, are pretty good. This one actually makes good use of the fact that your player character, Isaac, never speaks,
Yeah.
which is, can be seen as a detriment in certain adventure games. But in this one, they make it work by having it be sort of a symptom of his psychosis, which reveals itself the longer you play the game. I don't know. This game just clicked for me. This is the
Yeah.
game that I have beaten the most times.
Oh, interesting.
That's
I
interesting.
have probably
Do you know how
beaten
many?
this
Yeah.
probably 10 times.
Wow.
I've
I
beaten it
have played
3.
through this
You say
entire
that
game.
about 2 and 3?
No, not as much.
much.
2 I've only beaten twice, and 3 maybe 3 or 4 times. But I'm really into this game and this universe.
I don't know if we'd cover them separately because they do feel very close
Two
to
we
each
could.
other. Like
Two
they're-
we could.
The
I think 2 and 3 are more terrifying than this game is.
I feel the
this,
opposite.
I
I
think
just
this first
wanted-
game is the least scary.
I wanted to bring up just the fact that, well, then maybe we will, but I don't know. To me, they do all the core concepts they were loyal to a degree where I don't know
Yeah.
that I'd have any huge insights
Yeah.
that are different, other than mentioning that 2 had fake spacewalking, like where you could do the magnet boot thing, right? And then 3 had full 3D going around. And
no, 2 also did. You could
2
fly
had,
into.
okay.
Yeah.
So the big difference, one of the big differences I noticed was, one, I went back and I was like, when am I gonna fly through a chamber? And I was like, oh yeah, never.
Yeah. Yeah, not being able to fly was, in hindsight, a dumb thing about this game, I thought.
Maybe they didn't have the physics engine worked out.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
I'm going to lop off the arm of at least one, I guess, sinewy monster creature and pass my own checkpoint and start my own rant.
Necromorphs.
What are
That's
these,
correct.
These bone
But
monsters.
I kind of feel I feel like we don't know any of the names of the species of them.
Nope.
Because like there are different kinds.
Hey, you guys.
You know?
Nope.
What do you call Jake Gyllenhaal at the end of Velvet Buzzsaw?
Oh my god.
Necromorph.
Okay.
Velvet Buzzsaw spoiler. Go ahead.
Oof. No, but I like that. I like
did
that
too.
I like that you don't have a bestiary.
Yeah.
I like that you go into the game not knowing what the fuck you're going to see.
Yeah.
And then you have to come up with your own sort of shorthand descriptors for the different monsters.
Yeah, right. Like the 3-pronged winger guy and like the
manta ray, the
bat
scorpion.
sucker.
Yeah, human head spider.
Right. Yeah. Like half a cheetah. Yeah, exactly. So
Cheetah.
So to me, now thinking back on this series, because I think it's safe to say they're probably not going to make more of it. Or if they do, it'll be like a real big reboot.
Man, who knows?
Yeah. But it's been like 8 years.
And
there's no plans.
They announced they aren't. So, but that, in this world, it could easily get picked up by another company, but it would probably be different because it's different people.
Right.
making it.
I would say that even though I really like 2, I like 2 better for gameplay than I like 1.
We're still talking about Alien and Aliens, right?
No, I'm
it's
sorry.
interesting how it matches, though.
Yeah,
I think I like 2 better in general.
I don't. I think 1 is exactly what this game should be, narrative, like exactly what it should be, and we don't need more of it.
Would you have added? But you still would have added flight.
I think that would have made the game better.
Okay.
But because the worst thing about this game that everybody all across the internet acknowledges is the asteroid
turret
piece.
mission.
Oh,
It's
the turret
awful.
mission sucks.
Just horrible.
Take that out of the game.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, like after the sequel,
Yes.
they got rid of it.
Never
But-
put a tedious turret shooting mission into your game.
especially when that's not what this game is. But in
Nope.
any case, this game is exactly the right scale and size and the right amount of mystery. Like once the mystery of what the artifact is and what's going on, and once that stuff is sort of all uncanned, then I don't care that much about it because I get it. Like it's a weird demon artifact thing that fucked everybody up and made them all into hand blades because of evil Scientology. I got it. That's great. And I like that. That's fine. I don't need more iterations where narratively somebody was like, but what if we could figure out how to use it? Like, sure, it fucked everybody up, but like, what if we could figure it out?
I'm sorry, but that's literally the what is it? Wayland Yutani. That's their goal in Aliens.
I know
It's
that.
amazing.
And I know that, and I
goal
don't.
has always been dumb to me.
They definitely probably sat around and said, well, the first one was Alien. Let's take our cue from Aliens, plot-wise. Yeah.
Well, I think they take their cues from Alien and Aliens in many ways. One of them is like the actual production design of this ship is very Alien inspired. To some degree, the way that the aliens reproduce is inspired by Alien. Or I guess the xenomorphs are not aliens, but the way that they become these weird hand blades, which is what I'm going to keep fucking calling them.
Those bat things
Hand blades.
fly around. They flap around and they face rape things.
I thought
Yes, they
you
face
had
rape
it
you.
with half cheetah. That was funnier, but whatever.
No, but
It's your
half
thing.
cheetah is a different species. I'm trying to
okay.
differentiate that your standard hand blade with the saw suspender arms that it has.
We're gonna die. No, don't worry. He's just a standard.
He's a standard hand blade. He doesn't even have his thick black coating. You know what I mean? Like, you know how they get that weird dark black coating? Yeah.
There's not even a dog fetus hanging off the left side of his face.
You'll be fine. A couple of plasma cutter shots, you're golden.
Chop his legs off, he'll be fine.
Anyway, this game, I remember I played it in 2008 when it came out.
Yep.
It's my favorite survival horror experience I've ever had, but also because I hadn't played a lot in that genre at that point. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say if it's as good as I think it is because it was first for me, or if it is, or if it's actually this good. I think it's the best that I can think of, and I have played Alien Isolation. and I've played a number of these other games.
I think that's what I was trying to say in my very unclear rant, was just that this is the best, my favorite survival horror game I played.
So,
but I needed to note that I haven't played Alien Isolation.
I
want to put one other thing out in the rant before, because I want you guys to have your opinions, but I'm going to finish with one last piece. This game convinces me that horror, for me, is more fun in game form than it is in movie form. I enjoy horror more in games than I do in movies, and people are gonna come at me with this, and I'm fine with it.
No,
I'm ready.
It makes sense.
Having made horror things, I still think I like games better.
It makes sense because you can die
exactly
at any moment,
and you
in a horror
you
game,
feel punished.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas when you're watching a movie, you know that certain characters are going to be fine.
Right. It's also a horror movie suffers from the artifice of having to create horror circumstances and then give you reprieve from them in like this, frankly, overly linear way.
Usually by people making terribly unrealistic decisions that you just roll with.
Whereas a game is like, no, we're going to plop you in this level and you're going to be in it until the horror's over.
And since you get to decide what to do, we have to make it scary every way you turn and whatever you do.
And this game is relentless.
It's a haunted house.
Relentless. Yeah. You never feel safe in this game. Ever.
No,
never.
It's not the worst that I felt.
It's not bad feeling it's like that.
I think Dead Space is the perfect balance.
Yes.
In this genre.
Yes.
Because I think Alien Isolation that you brought up and also The Evil Within, which are two games that came out a few years later.
And I like less.
Are more oppressive in their feelings of terror and dread and hopelessness. It's like those games, I haven't finished either of those games because they're too much.
That's interesting. I can see that. I think Evil Within is like just sort of hokey. Like I find it kind of hokey.
All right, the format's completely dissolved.
No,
episode,
I'm sorry. We should,
which is fine. But I mean, like, I'm gonna call it that we can just do this.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Game on. Game on. So that means just go.
This thing's become like your game on has really evolved into like a long wail.
I used to just say game on.
Yeah.
I might be a bit now. We'll see. Might have to Daily Zeitgeist style ask for game on suggestions and shit. Do them every episode. Yeah. So anyway, you were saying, because I definitely want to talk plot. You mentioned it being a critique of Scientology.
Yes.
And I want that explained to me because
it's not even a critique; it's an indictment.
I'm too dumb, or I played it too. I didn't know enough about Scientology when I first played it to make the connects, and now I'm not making it. And I know there's Unitarianism, Unitology. There's your first red flag.
Yep.
The study of my unit, I believe, is the origin.
The single study. Yes.
on my dick.
We have studied the unit. How'd it go? We have been driven mad.
It didn't go great. Not great.
A lot of people are dead.
But in what
Not
ways,
happy about it.
Yeah, so indictment of Scientology because they go nuts and murder everyone? Or
no,
what connections are there in the story?
You want me to do it now?
Yeah. He basically teed you up.
With the stuff you find in-game and then the stuff that they later expounded upon there are 2 animated movies and 2 sequels.
That's crazy.
I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
Oh, yeah. And 1 spin-off game.
Clone Wars is about Dead Space, if you didn't know.
Unitology is... It's very much a Scientology analog. They talk about how it attracts, celebrities, and it's about... you pay your way to enlightenment to the certain levels. And it's basically, obviously the religion is all about being one with the marker, which is the thing.
That's right, the marker, not the artifact.
No, it's the marker.
Yeah.
The thing that they find.
Sniff that marker.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's very much a very wealthy, powerful cult that has exerted its will, and that's in the first game. The captain of the Ishimura is actually secretly a unitologist, and I'm pretty sure, and that's why they did the planet cracking, which was illegal when they did it. Like the story of the game is that they did an illegal planet cracking and uncovered
which is
a
like
marker,
fracking a whole planet at once from space and taking all the minerals out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sucking its sweet markers out.
Yeah.
It is,
and that's how we find magic alien.
Yeah, it's like cartoonishly destructive.
I think it's so interesting how if you didn't know anything, I just realized a really apt description is it's Alien with the monolith from 2001,
Yes.
and the monsters from John
Thing.
Carpenter's
From
The
The Thing,
Thing.
yeah.
And also the virulent corporate goals of Avatar.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the man wears a bucket for a helmet.
He
But-
sure does.
Like it
So-
sounds like he's talking
here's
a
the-
bucket the whole game.
thing that always confused me is what would you say, so to speak, is the marker's goal? What is
nothing.
why is it driving people insane? Is that just an aspect of what it's
Yeah.
like?
Just chaos.
Like how
It's-
radiation makes you die. This makes
Yeah,
you go
it's
nuts.
some. Man, it gets real complicated, and I don't.
That's
I'm-
what-
but Dead Space 2, it
I have to
becomes-
apologize for not having.
No, I'm putting you on the spot,
It's
but I
okay.
remember the basics of the plot, but I also remember the plot being fairly dense because I mean, if you've read Transmetropolitan, Warren Ellis' his biggest.
That's
thing.
very dense.
Yeah, he's a dense writer, and
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
he didn't want to just do Alien, so he added a lot
No,
of details.
it has.
plots.
It sends like a signal that makes people crazy and also reanimates the dead.
and makes
and they
people
all-
drawn to it too. I think
Yeah, their goal
physically,
is to join together as one.
rub
But the
against it.
marker does consciously make you do it. Like,
Yes.
So in Dead Space 2, Isaac has regular visions from Nicole, his ex-girlfriend, who we find out died in the end of
Yep.
Dead Space 1, spoilers. And it's clear that Nicole is the marker's consciousness. Like, the marker is talking through Nicole
Yep.
to make him do what it wants him to do. So it is conscious enough to have a
So
will.
it does have a goal. Its goal is it wants people to come closer to it.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it
I
just
don't know
wants-
what it
what
wants.
the end result
It
would
just
be.
wants to gain the most people it can to join together
And
as
make
one.
one
But it's,
giant
if I remember,
knife arm.
It's always left mysterious.
One,
like,
one
well, that's
giant
what's funny is because
fucking elbow blade.
the
Yeah.
necromorphs also kind of look like some of the monsters in the latter half of the game inside.
Yeah,
So it's,
or vice versa. in
it's
fact.
almost like it right in terms
Yeah.
of timing. I'm just trying to imagine what the end result would be all the necromorphs rubbing against it and becoming a huge blob like at the end of Inside, right?
It would just
That's
be
its
one.
goal?
Yeah, it would. You see it in Dead Space 3.
I mean, it's going to be an orgy.
It's
Like,
just
it's
one-
just going to be.
This is what I'm
Yeah.
getting
This is
at.
going to be like with their fried skin.
It's
just
like
it's
it's like a
When
Reaver
they're
blood
fucking,
orgy type thing.
fucking
Yeah.
switchblade elbows.
Yeah.
No, it's just the final battle in Dead Space 3 is a gigantic moon that's
Yeah.
like all markered out. So it's basically the marker's goal is to just be one gigantic blob.
It's the blob,
of-
yeah.
Yeah, it's the blob.
Yeah. But the blob with a mind.
Yes.
Yeah, almost. I guess it's the reverse of the obelisk in 2001, which was trying to lead us to like our ascension.
But-
This
but-
is like, I want you guys to devolve into goo with me. Come on.
Yeah.
But see, I do like that we don't get that much more from the marker because that's the point at which it would be dumb. Mm-hmm. Like,
Yeah.
because this is already on the verge of being like an anime plot,
Sure.
with like a really dumb villain. And it's just shy of it, and I think that's
Yeah.
a good decision.
Yeah, you don't need much.
You don't need a devil god character. That's dumb. You know,
It's enough that
Well, the
marker,
aliens are long gone, right? We don't find out anything about them really. Whoever made the marker, it's just there.
in Dead Space 3 you find like a really ancient alien archaeological dig where they found a marker,
Yeah.
on Earth, right?
hundreds of centuries ago.
Yeah.
Not on Earth, although that is part of the plot that you can uncover in documents and text files that you find in.
God bless you for reading all those text files.
Oh Jesus, man!
You're the hero
I
we read right
compulsively
now.
read text files.
Yeah,
I was
both of
gonna
you.
s-
I hate doing it.
Kingdom Hearts 3 I just played through. It was the first game in like maybe 15 years where I skipped all the cutscenes, and it was painful to do because I'm like, I'm missing out on some part of the experience, but it's like, no, they're insufferable. You got to just cut them out. But I like the Dead Space text files. You got Warren Ellis writing your text files, man. Come on, that's
Yep.
rare opportunity.
You guys might just find this interesting. Dead Space was originally intended to be System Shock 3.
That's really interesting.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
The gameplay
But-
is markedly different from System
Well,
Shock
I think
and
they
Bioshock
they
game,
pivoted
yeah.
after Resident Evil 4 came out.
Well, then let's transition.
Because this is very like Resident
It's
Evil
very
4.
Resident Evil 4.
There's two
yes.
branches I definitely want to cover before, like in the fullness of the episode, is like how is it so scary? What were the moments of
Yeah.
scary? What makes that effective? And I guess let's do that now, or gameplay innovations, because I still think Tom is right, and I think we still haven't even unpacked how unique it is that you chop stuff
as a gaming
up.
experience.
It's funny on the Wikipedia they're like the core mechanic of the game is strategic dismemberment.
Right.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that's also the core mechanic of Ted Bundy's career, but okay.
Well, yeah, but it's the only game that's done that.
If only he'd
Yeah.
lived in 2508, he would have had a whole different experience of life. Yeah. By the way, the fact that it takes place in 2508.
and we're cracking planets. It's
Well,
still
no, but we're
optimistic.
in 2008 when this game comes out. So it has to be exactly 500 years in the future.
Yep.
That's really
Someone should have
stupid.
said, 500 years ago today.
this
a prophecy
game came
foretold.
out.
Yeah. I do sometimes think the designers of Dead Space, like in the peripheral, like they have bad taste, but they just stumble onto a lot of good things. For instance, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star as scary anthem
Yeah.
is one of the dumbest things
As
in
a
any
concept.
game.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God. It's like you could have picked any song ever
It
to do
works,
that
though.
job. No, it doesn't. Maybe it's okay. To me, it's like as cliche or as dumb as like every funeral with Amazing Grace in a movie. Like every single one that uses the same like dumb trope.
Yeah.
Although I would
Like,
say
I hate that.
the score that's like carpeted across 90% of the game does work, and it's not stellar. Like I'm not pulling it out like it's the Mario theme or anything.
No, of course.
But it's exactly like horror movie carpet music.
And the only
Like,
point that I'm really making is
and
that like
it works. You the whole time you're like, yeah, dread music. I know.
the only point I'm really making is that like that sometimes they miss things, and I think they just didn't miss
Sure.
that much.
Well, it's EA, so that's interesting
Yeah.
because Mass Effect's EA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Meaning
Same
also
time.
Knights of the Old Republic and Jade Empire. People like that's a deep cut nowadays. But yeah, I don't this might be the least clunky game or like most smooth, most elegant game. I've never played an EA game that didn't feel like a PC game. And by that I mean console games that really feel like they're meant for the controller, like a Destiny franchise, are so you can feel that it's smooth and everything is so screwed together.
Yeah.
And this, like, combat with Isaac feels amazing.
It does
You're
feel
like, the one thing I need is for the laser to turn sideways. Oh, it can turn sideways. Gangster style laser cutter. All right.
Yep.
My suit is a living HUD, so there's no need for a HUD. There's like
I loved that.
There's
Yes.
because the
Yeah.
camera's behind your back. Your life bar is just bad things
Is
on
your
your
spine.
suit, and your upgrades are things on your suit. So you're fully immersed with no need for any kind of HUD.
That was a great
These
idea.
are very
Yes.
Yeah.
concrete
Very much
innovations,
so.
and I've never seen EA innovate that much since KOTOR, because they did KOTOR, and then I would
Knights of
say
the Republic.
basically, yeah, sorry, Knights of the Old Republic. Mass Effect is sort of iterative of that, and Dead Space is not. Dead Space might be the most unique EA thing I can think of.
It's hard. It's hard to say. Just to defend.
They're
EA,
also a giant umbrella company, so they have many games. I
right?
can't
Because like every
conjure
Madden
the list.
game has been
Those are
buttery
very polished.
smooth for a
But
for a
God,
console.
Yeah.
Mass
You
Effect.
know.
Maybe I just have a chip on my shoulder against Mass Effect, but it feels so clunky to me.
Mass Effect is a clumsy game,
And I'm like,
I think.
why couldn't Mass Effect feel like Dead Space feels if it's EA? I don't know.
You know what? Like, we're gonna put that in the archive and talk because we should do some Mass Effect.
Well, we got it.
episodes.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, that's worth talking about. Because
Yeah.
I agree with you about that. That's
All right, so
interesting.
what made it scary then? For like, because I'll note that unlike Alien Isolation and even Resident Evil 2, one of the few horror games where I can't, at least, or the sequence is pretty brief. I don't remember any invincible monster that chases you.
Only
follows
one
style.
in
Yeah,
Dead Space.
and
Oh,
it's
it has
not
the
like
one.
constantly, right?
No, it's in like maybe 2 levels of Dead Space, and it is the scariest part of the game.
Yeah, it's pretty
Nobody
scary.
likes being
Is-
fucking chased.
Is the tentacle that comes out of the hole in one, or is that in
It's
two?
in one. Yeah, that's
To
in
me,
one.
that was the scariest part of the game.
Really?
And the most I admired it from like a filmmaking perspective, because I was like,
Okay.
your ability to use what you know my expectation is. I see a giant hole in a horror game. Well, a tentacle's going to come out of that.
Yeah,
Right.
some monster is going to come
There's
out of
no
that.
way to make it scary or surprising. Yes, there is.
They figured it out.
Force you to revisit this hole 21 times.
so much.
Till you go, yeah, the hole's there. I forgot about that. Then on the 22nd time, the tentacle comes out and you go, oh God, I forgot the tentacle. Of course the tentacle.
Yep.
And you literally have to like dismember the tentacle in
You gotta
what
shoot, like,
feels
bulbs.
like a cutscene.
Yeah.
As you're getting dragged in the hole. And
Yeah.
man, I got just crammed in that hole
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah, the part
Throw
where
in the hole.
it's the crew deck.
Okay.
where the
He knows this
regenerating.
game.
Oh yeah, the regenerating monster shows up.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to hit him with stasis because you can chop his limbs off, but he's going to grow them back. So
Don't you burn him? Don't you end up burning him?
You do eventually.
Yeah, you burn him.
Yes.
That's always the solution, by the way. Burn it.
Resident Evil 2, you crash a truck into him.
Thank God.
But either way,
haven't got that far.
Oh,
but I knew
he
there was a
comes
way.
the fuck back, sir.
that's true. But I forget. Different day. But he does ultimately die. I forget how.
He's the last boss of the game.
No, he's not. The guy with the eyeball in his shoulder is the last boss of the game.
Not if you're playing Leon A in the Resident Evil.
Well, I guess
Leon
depends
A
which
remake.
storyline
We
you're
will
playing
do
through.
a Resident Evil 2 version because we're gonna have
They
to.
flipped
Yeah.
it. They flipped it.
For real?
Well, yeah. Because, in the original Resident Evil 2, in Leon's A game, you fought William Birkin, who was this big, gigantic dog monster
what
with a
I'm talking
mouth
about.
on his chest. And
Yeah.
then in Claire's game, you fought Mr. X, who's a tyrant.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
flipped it in the new game so that you fight the tyrant in Leon's game and you fight William Birkin dog form in Claire's game.
Just to fuck with you.
Yep.
Keep
Pretty
you on your
much.
A
toes.
little bit. Just
Sure.
a little bit. I like that.
To surprise the shit out of you when he fucking shows up.
I think
So
I want to get back to your question, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
sort of
Sure, go ahead.
what were the things that were the most terrifying in
Yes.
this game. One of the key pieces of it we haven't talked about is being outside without air. There's a number of times in this game where that happens, and none of them are scary like jump scary, but they're really tense every single time.
Right.
Like really tense
That's
because
classic.
I
I would
think-
say I feel that same way in adventure games when I have to swim through a tunnel that's just long enough to get
Yeah.
to the air bubble.
Yeah.
It
I
always
think
has
you're
that.
I think you're only outside in one section of it, and that's when you have to walk
all
across.
the way to that fucking asteroid turret.
Yep.
But the sound design when you're outside.
Yep. It's
is-
real good.
Yeah.
If it were a movie, I would be talking about like Oscar buzz around the sound is editing Oscar.
This-
because it so adds so much to the experience of being in space and doesn't feel like I can't think of a game that handled it that way before.
This game reminds me that it's weird that we don't have horror movies in best sound stuff in the Academy Awards every year, because in horror stuff, sound is so much more important.
Yes.
As a present, like conscious element than in any other genre.
It's done
Yeah.
lazily a lot because it's been figured out so formulaically.
Yeah.
But when it's done right, it's so
Like every
Amazing.
every single monster, even Cheetah and Suspender Knife Arms, has like their own unique sound, and you know what it is. You fucking hear them, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I know where it, and like you don't know where it is though. Like
Yeah.
it's good, man.
You can detect it though. Like if you're wearing headphones or you have like a fucking dynamic speaker setup.
if
Yeah,
you were
like you get
wealthier men than us,
directionality.
Right. Well, I'm just saying the game is sophisticated enough
Sure.
that it does the sound is localized, so
Yeah.
you can
well, yeah.
pinpoint.
What
where
about that
things
I
weird
are.
also
guy-
just have my manservant say, "Sir, a necromorph to your left, sir.
middle left,
Cheetah house
11
at
o'clock.
3 o'clock."
17 yards to your southeast.
well shot, sir.
And I also, you wanted to keep saying when you were scared.
I
though.
do, yeah, because I'm responsible.
I want you to get all your booze out before we,
No. That's one thing I think was really scary. I think also the first couple of levels when there are people dying in front of you, which happens less as time goes on, and meaning like
Yeah.
you meet a person and they die, and then
And
or
then
you
they
see a
become an
person getting
necromorph.
experimented on
Right.
and die.
But by a third of the way through, everyone's already died and come back as a necromorph, so you're just seeing necromorphs.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's when you're still shocked by the horror of it.
Yeah.
Is like that's the most rewarding Dead Space ever is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like because even in Dead Space 2, you never get those like, oh God, what is going on in this place? Like you never have that confusion again ever.
Yeah. The conceit is they come back once they're dead and start mutating. But it also made them go crazy and kill each other. That's how they got the first crop of corpses to
Yes.
become necromorphs,
Yes.
right? I see why they made the choice, but it's interesting to me that realistically, you probably in the early part should have run into some totally unmutated humans who seem perfectly normal that you still need to dismember for the sake of safety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And you really wouldn't want to.
Also, like the way that one of the silliest things about this game is the stomp mechanic. Not because it's bad; it's good.
Pretty fucking brutal.
It's really brutal.
American history space.
It's all right. There's a lot of curb stomping in this game.
Sure
But
is.
it's also very silly because anytime you stomp on anybody, they sever in like 4 distinct places immediately.
Yes.
Like you stomp on a dude in the chest, you know that head's popping right off.
They have-
a couple
they have-
of legs rolling around.
Every body has 5 sever points. The neck and then
Both
all
arms.
4 limbs.
Yeah.
They're essentially crash test dummies.
They
They're
really
jointed
are.
in a specific fashion.
Like
Yeah, that's true.
a person can give you their last words and then die sadly, and then you walk over and stomp them. That leg's popping off like a Lego leg.
And I don't know.
Yeah, that's just.
I
I
don't
think
know why
that's.
that doesn't bother me. I just was like, yeah, that's a game.
It's
just
a
games.
game.
Yeah, it's just
It's a
games.
game.
I agree. I'm not being a
it's-
dick.
It's a
games.
mechanic of the game. Like they have 5 distinct sever points.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you get
Yeah.
to determine whether you're being a dick. I think that's for us.
I think I get to determine it. I think so. I also want to point. No, I'm going to save this observation for later because I do have 1 or 2 joke thoughts that have occurred to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I also wanted to bring up that it's amazing to me actually how it's like in and out style of menu design. Like unlike Mass Effect or most games, frankly, almost any game you can name, especially as you go forward in time, they're like you can get a multitude of weapons, but most of them are tools more than weapons.
That was a
Yeah.
specific choice of the design
It's like a
team.
limited menu experience, and unlike System Shock, where your right hand is your gun and your left hand's going to end up doing 14 things.
Yeah.
In this, you have 2 things, and you get them in the beginning, and you have them: stasis field and what's the other?
Kinesis?
Kinesis module. And I think that, and their decision to be like, you know what? I mean, by the end, I basically just used the laser cutter because it's the fucking most fun.
Oh, the plasma cutter? Yeah.
plasma cutter.
Yeah.
That's interesting
Easy
because
assault rifle,
I
yeah.
disagree. To me, the most fun weapon, far and away, is the Ripper. That Ripper
Oh, yeah, I
is
use the
making my
Ripper a
life
lot.
way better
Can
in
you
that
describe
game.
the Ripper for people who haven't played it?
The Ripper is essentially the gravity gun from Half-Life 2. It launches a saw. It launches a saw blade right in front of you, which hovers miraculously in the
In
air.
place, but
Oh, it
spinning.
uses your kinesis module.
Yes, it
Yeah.
uses your yes, and then you just basically saw fools down.
You
sure
You just wiggle the stick
Yes,
and watch
and it-
people pop apart in the exact
Yeah.
same 4 places.
and it's wonderful. It's just
Their,
wonderful.
The force gun is pretty funny too.
Yeah, that's also
When
funny.
when you level it up, the force gun basically it's a force push.
Yeah.
But when you max all the nodes out, it just blasts monsters apart, and
Yep.
it's very
At their
fun.
that's
Yep.
the most crash test dummy they get.
Yeah.
is they just pop off like fucking
At all of the joints.
toys.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I mean, also you can use all the severed knife hands as
Yep.
javelin spears with the kinesis
Right.
module.
and they're
Yes.
instant kills.
Yes, and they're fun. That's fun. To do.
Okay, so I'm minimizing it. I'm exaggerating for effect,
Of
but I
course.
still think like nine ways to kill the enemies and 2 abilities shows so much restraint.
Totally.
And I just think that's another very interesting thing about the game. I wonder why. I feel like, unless I'm just really ignorant on this genre, this game is like not ripped off enough. And again, like I'm surprised and sad to find out there won't be more. Like why isn't there strategic dismemberment in other more recent games?
I think
there were great
'Cause
ideas.
they owned
here.
it so hard.
I just think there were great ideas in Dead Space, and usually in gaming,
Yeah.
you see gaming innovations get picked up and passed around by the community and reskinned.
EA is notorious for sitting on games that are good. Like SimCity, I think,
Oh yeah,
is a property they own. And
but
they,
aren't there? Isn't
they fucked up the latest release real bad, and now there's one that's called like Cities Skyline or something. There's another another company came out and was like, well, we can do SimCity. That's not fucking stupid like you guys
We'll
made
compete,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Cities Skyline is I think what it's called. EA is like the Disney of video games, but
Or one of the Disneys. There's like 3 Disneys.
Yeah.
right, it doesn't have the I don't want to say skill. It doesn't know to develop the properties it has necessarily.
like their choosing is not good. Whatever the behemoth, whatever the process within the behemoth is that decides what to double down on or
Yeah,
what to cancel, they fuck it up a lot.
Right. There was as far as I can tell, there's not really any reason to let Dead Space go dormant. They just did.
I think it didn't sell as well as they were hoping.
I think
Sales were
I think
low.
part 3 didn't sell as well. Yeah.
Well, and part 3 was a natural evolution of where they were going, so they would really
Maybe
have
they
to
felt
think
like,
of
oh,
a new
I guess
idea.
The idea is boring now.
I
or
kind
whatever.
of I don't have this handy, but I'm going to do it while you guys are talking. I'm going to find like a list of the major EA properties from the last 10 years because there's so many more than you think.
Because I actually consider it a very high compliment that I said I thought it was Capcom. Because I was like, I would never say an EA game is a Capcom game. And I know at least a tiny percentage of people listening will know what I mean by that. Capcom seems to always, they're not always innovative. And you can see the limited money sometimes in like the map sizes and things like that. But it's always fucking smooth. It's like arcade smooth. It's
I'm just gonna name a couple of franchises that they have, like not even the games, just the franchises.
Right.
They
Do
own
it.
Madden.
Of course.
They own
yeah,
FIFA.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
huge.
Yeah.
They own Anthem, which is coming out in like 10 minutes. They own Battle. I think it might be good. I don't know. Battlefield. That's a huge franchise. They own.
and
Adam's
Battlefront.
a
the Star
Battlefront.
Wars
That's
one.
another one.
Yep.
Sims, as you said.
Battlefront's okay.
I don't.
Different
I
day.
don't love Battlefront
Topic for
either.
day.
They shit the bed on Battlefront
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Titanfall. Dragon Age.
We've discussed Titanfall 2, one of those
Yeah.
hidden gems in the single player campaign.
We haven't done it
It's
in
rad.
this. We haven't done it in this format, but we've done it on Escort Mission.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Same observation.
Yeah, same jokes.
Titanfall
You'll remember
2
them.
single player campaign is dope.
Burnout is. I mean, that used to matter.
Burnout's good.
Yeah, it's very
Burnout's
good.
fun as hell.
Need for Speed they own.
Sure.
SSX. Anyone?
Yeah, loved
Fucking
it. Loved
Get
it.
Tricky. Love that
God,
game.
okay.
Anyway,
So-
NBA Live they own.
I like that EA is like,
Mirror's Edge.
it must smell like Axe body spray up in there because it is. Those are all very male gazy.
Oh,
If you,
Mass
like,
Effect.
parse
Sorry.
it, it's like. Yeah,
All the
sports,
BioWare games.
sports
Yeah.
and astronauts and skateboarding. I see where they're coming from. Yeah,
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 I mean,
yeah.
so 89% of games, right? And they have a lot of the big franchises.
But their niche, what they view as their niche, is becoming clear to me as you say this. Yeah, cars, sports, astronauts. that all makes sense.
They're aiming for 4-quadrant blockbusters
exactly.
in,
Yeah.
in game form.
I mean, they're the only people that are directly competing against Call of Duty. Like directly.
What would you call their?
Battlefield is directly
Oh,
competing
right,
with Call
right,
of
right.
Duty.
Battlefield. Okay, I thought we were talking
And
Star
that's
Wars
like
Battlefront.
that's
They did both,
that's like having a second Star Wars franchise. It's like imagine there was another Star Wars, like you know what I mean, and that's what they're doing.
Picture 2 Star Wars.
Right? Picture.
That we had that.
You know?
It's Lord of the Rings.
Totally disagree with that, but we
Okay.
can talk about that later.
Oh, but that's a good segue
Yeah.
because you saying that reminds me. I totally disagree with. I want to talk about. No, horror movies. Horror movies are one of my favorite things in the world.
Me too.
Like, I eventually want to do a podcast about my favorite horror movies
too.
only. But yet you think gaming is better, and I would say,
For me, for a horror experience, I prefer games.
It's
and I
more
just
scary.
There needs to
Yeah.
be a voice out there saying, I don't even because horror movies don't scare me anymore because I'm not a child. Like,
Well, that's what I mean.
my ability to understand that it's fantasy, but that's true of games too. All it does is give me the a trigger adrenaline rush because I'm gonna die and lose all this work till my last save point. Oh, I died and lost all my work
But
till my
that's
last save point.
But that's all it ever was.
Yeah.
That's
That's
Michael,
all horror.
Don't you see?
Well, yeah, that's
it
all.
ever was.
Well, of course. Seriously, that's all horror movies ever were.
See, I disagree because I think that's if you're going into a horror movie trying to be scared. And what I'm saying is horror has become one of my favorite genres because I like thinking about grief and depression and trauma, and horror movies usually circle around that. And I love sci-fi and fantasy concepts, and I love twist endings, and horror usually has that. I don't watch it to be scared, and when I play a game that does make me scared, like Mr. X, now I'm scared, my instinct is to shut it off. I don't enjoy that experience at all.
But
So
all
it's
of
interesting
those,
to me, like, what do you like about that feeling that like something's chasing me? Oh fuck! What's good about that?
I think the the movie is such a curated experience that I mean, once you've seen it once, you know exactly what's going to happen and you know how it ends. But it's still predicated on the fact that you are taking everything that the characters are experiencing. Like you said, you like horror movies because they make you feel grief and all those
they
things.
make me think about grief.
They make you think about it, but
you're right.
The way you think
else's.
about it is you're projecting yourself onto the movie's characters.
Yes,
That's the way you experience those movies.
and the video game obviously does that more.
Of course, the
Powerfully.
video game is the direct thing where you literally are controlling this person and the things are pursuing you and the things happen to you. It may not be as impactful in terms of explorations of grief or things like that, more conceptual parts of horror movies, but the actual terror parts of horror movies, I think video games are much more effective at doing because all they have to do is replicate the you're being chased mechanic.
They are. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't like feeling scared.
Right. You don't like what
interesting.
horror movies are for.
And yet I love horror movies
Me
because
too.
they don't make me scared. Like I watch Martyrs. It doesn't make me scared. It makes me wonder what did she whisper about the afterlife.
Do you
before she died,
Do you like horror games more once you've beaten them and you know what all the scares are and surprises are?
I find that if I can break through to the point where I've seen the death animation a dozen times and it's lost its sting, then I do like it more. Like, spoiler alert for a future episode, I had never played Resident Evil 2 before, the remake, but I played through both storylines and I loved it. I really loved it. But, like, again, I'll just keep coming back to Alien Isolation, where the main appeal was there's only one monster. Or Resident Evil 7, where, yes, there's multiple monsters, but the main one you hate is the bald, like, paterfamilias of the zombie family.
The
That
bald
son of a bitch.
That guy looks exactly
I
like my fucking grandfather,
Hate that feeling.
and it's funny to watch.
Both of those
Anyway.
games, I was like,
Like all those eyes covering his body.
Yeah, he has 19 eyes.
He's 3 stories tall.
Yeah, exactly.
but both of those games, half an hour in, I was like, it's a shame because these seem like really good games. I'm too scared to progress further. Whereas like Resident Evil 4, one more late, like it's silly instead of being.
It's also
truly
an action
scary.
game.
That's what. Yeah, it's action. I'm like Resident Evil 4 was like shit.
Resident Evil 4 is a clear move away from horror
It's
into
survival
gross,
action.
like sort of gory action.
And I think Dead Space has that. Like
Dead Space moved further into that direction too.
The first Dead Space.
You mean over the course of the franchise,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, actually, in all of them, you're never helpless.
No.
You're never pursued by an enemy that you can't defeat pretty easily.
And you're rarely fucked on ammo or anything.
Right,
like that.
like they give you.
Earlier it's harder, but you can do it.
It's not
can
as
do
hard
it.
as a lot of.
You gotta
That's what-
land your shots.
I hate the
Gotta land
feeling
them.
of like Alien Isolation. Like I have nothing. I have nothing.
Well,
on me.
in
and there's
Alien
the
Isolation, the alien doesn't give a fucking shit about your guns
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah,
So it's
right,
like,
it's omnipotent.
Like
right.
I got this gun, and I was like, yeah, and the alien's like, I don't care about that gun. He
I don't
smacked
like
it
how
out of
he's
my
Like,
hand.
I have 2 mouths. Here's the second one.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
But,
chew
like,
your eyes out.
In Dead Space, you're always empowered. You're in a
Yeah.
terrifying environment, but you always have the tools you need. So it's not quite like an Alien Isolation or some of the more recent Resident Evils,
I'd
where
say
it's
it's
like
even less scary than BioShock 1. The Big Daddies and the Little Sisters were truly.
I
Would hate. I'd get a feeling of dread.
that's an
just
optional boss
approaching
fight.
a
And
room.
I think
Yeah.
that's where I would make the distinction that I think what you like about horror, and I also like it, is more the feeling of dread and like to some degree revulsion.
and trying
and-
to figure out the nature of
Yes.
evil.
Yeah.
And that like the contemplative aspects
Yeah.
of it. I also agree with that, and I don't want that in video game.
Oh.
But like the horror, or I don't want that as much
Yeah, it would
in
be
video
too.
games.
It would be too.
Like,
Excursive.
I don't want.
Yeah,
I didn't
discursive.
like about Dead Space 2, for instance, that they tried to do that. Like they tried to get a little more contemplative,
Mm-hmm.
and they would go into cutscenes that you were no longer controlling the character, and I thought that was a mistake
Mm-hmm.
because Dead Space 1, you're in it the whole time, and basically you learn like 4 things.
Yeah.
You know, this is the actual bad guy. This is the actual good
see,
guy.
now you know for
You know?
real, Adam does not fuck with the text logs.
I try
If-
not to.
If you read the text logs, you learn like a million things, but they're all little B plots.
I read
and, like,
them all.
details of.
I read them all when I
Yeah.
first played this
Right.
game, but I didn't care about it because it was like, sure, okay.
It's like, yeah, I found that guy dead, and now I know exactly who he was and
Yeah.
how he died and why.
Mm-hmm.
Because I frankly like again, and maybe I don't know. I just play games for gameplay more than I play them for story, and I keep coming back to it.
I don't know why. That's why I'm saying is like I feel like this game didn't feel like the whole game was hide and seek because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten through it, and
Yeah.
I did, and I loved it. So there's a lot of varied gameplay. And like you said, Tom, yeah, it's never the situation where, how are they going to scare me? Well, I'm in a room with one exit and there's an invincible boss and I have one bullet. Like that's some old school Resident Evil shit.
You can't do that. Yeah, Resident Evil will trap you in an almost unsolvable problem.
Dead Space does not do that.
No, it doesn't.
Dead Space it's more focused on the gameplay. Like, I think the reason why I've beaten Dead Space so many times is because it's fun to play.
Exactly. It is fun to play. That's on a granular level.
There's only two things about it that are not fun to do. Leaping in 3D space, not flying. I think that's not that fun.
Not great.
Didn't care for that. They fixed it. And also, again, just because it has to be said, shooting fucking asteroids.
Fuck
infuriating.
That turret
infuriation. Can I ask
is garbage.
Because you're someone who usually cares about the reality within the game world more than the story concept, but I just want to point out that diving through 3D space to point on the opposite wall, that's the same as if it wasn't invisible, it's the same as in Arkham games having the zipline tool that allows you to point at an opposite wall and zip over there.
It was that you have to navigate the three-dimensional space in this way that is not intuitive. It's that you have to jump at a thing. You can't really alter the trajectory of your jump.
Once you've done
and then you land there, and you can't actually jump anywhere you want to. Okay. You can only jump on key spaces.
It's an invisible zip line, essentially.
Yeah, that part, and it's not a good one.
That part didn't bother me as much. It's not super refined, but it's not, to me, it's nowhere near a game breaker
not at all.
Like the turret mission is.
Also, if you've read
that mission.
Well, the turret mission, I think, is honestly a Millennium Falcon TIE Fighter sequence homage. And I do think it really is
only bad.
That's fine. But I really do think it's intentionally a pastiche of multiple things, because those 3D rooms, by the way, including the way you move in them and the look of them, if you've read the book, totally referencing Ender's Game. Like, they're the battle rooms from Ender's Game. So it's interesting. That's 2001 plus The Thing plus Ender's Game plus Alien, and you get Dead Space.
It is very mathematical. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be cynical, because it is a nice combination of all those things.
But EA is that's their process. That's another way they're Disneyfied. It's gonna be mathematical.
You can see that in Dead Space, and that's, again, it's in its DNA. It's just fun to play. It rewards you to keep playing. It rewards you to go into the little kiosks and spend actual money to buy new suits for Isaac and new weapon skins and shit.
Yeah, the way that money works in this universe, I can't understand why.
What is the currency? Is it UN?
It looks like it's
credits.
It looks like it's bullet clips. All the credits look like bullet clips.
They're like little motherboards. Yeah.
Oh, that's
right. And it's I can't understand why, when you would have a 3D display system, why you would ever have money in hard currency.
You carry around a leather pouch full of little chips.
Totally baffling. Why would you do that?
It's a game thing.
Again, I know, but it's funny. That's funny.
It's funny. It's like the sever points, but it's also like in Resident Evil, where you come upon the shopkeeper. He's like, "What are you buying?"
Yeah,
and
what
you're
are you buying?
"I've got this rocket launcher, but I'm gonna need 15 gems from you." And you're like, "I'm just gonna shoot you in the face and take that rocket launcher."
Here? You should just help me.
Right. We're all in trouble. Also, I'm fucking loaded to bear. I'm going to take that gun from you, and there's not fucking shit you can do about it.
Are you not seeing the tentacle heads of these Spaniards?
Yeah.
What are you doing, buddy?
That's also, though, the chip, I think, the chips as money is another Alien thing, because the big innovation in film was it was the first time Ridley Scott was given a lot of credit for being like, no, in the future, the ships aren't going to look Flash Gordon-y and iPhone-y and all perfect and smooth, which was the tradition in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
They're going to look like asses.
He's like, they're going to look like a long-haul trucker's truck or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're going to look like the
or
art,
like a submarine.
The album lining artwork in Kid A.
Yes. Well, he specifically
Yeah.
designed, and the same thing in Dead Space. Ridley Scott specifically wanted the cargo of the Nostromo to look like a medieval castle, and that's specifically what the designers of Dead Space wanted.
That's
like Isaac's suit is supposed to be medieval.
Yeah,
it looks medieval, but it also
so cool.
It's really fucking cool.
It's medieval.
Just the design is
it reminds you a
beautiful.
little of BioShock.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
The arm design, where it's like the 30 patches, it's still, I think it's got a lot of cool design flair that's unique to it.
I like
it's a
it.
great suit.
It's cool. It's one of the only games where I really feel excited to like try on new suits.
Totally.
Because the design
Except
is
Metroid.
so cool.
Metroid's the best with suits. Come on.
Sure.
What are we talking about?
I'd
But I
say
mean-
the new Spider-Man game is the best.
Same.
Oh yeah,
the
for
most
sure.
I've been into
for
suits
sure.
ever.
For sure. But this is like that, where it's
Yeah.
like each one is like, oh, do I want to wear this? Like there's a lot of cool
What
options.
should I wear to the cotillion?
and they tuck like buffs into them, so it's
Yeah.
like you want them.
Yeah, that's all accurate. My last question that's philosophical in
buff
nature is what possible use is the plasma cutter and line gun in actual engineering?
Girders.
What can you imagine it does?
Cutting the end off a 6-foot girder to make it a 3-foot girder.
They describe the use of each gun in the game if you look it up. Plasma cutters exist, but not like they are in Dead Space.
right.
But they are.
What do they use for mining?
Yeah,
I assume
they're construction equipment.
I understand that what you're saying is applying the word plasma cutter to a thing that's actually a plasma cutter, and like that's what it is. But like, really think about
In
what
real
this
life,
thing
a
is
plasma
doing.
cutter's like a powerful blowtorch.
Right, of course it is,
Yeah,
because
that's
that's what
all.
it would be. It
Yeah.
wouldn't send out a severing knife line that
No,
would
it's
like,
like
that would chop off people's
it's
arms.
It's like in Lethal Weapon 2 when Danny Glover kills people with a nail gun. It's like
Right.
this wouldn't work like this.
Yeah, it's
but it does. in
marvelous.
Or
this-
nail
yeah.
guns
Yeah.
would be much restricted.
Like, I like the idea that they thought of this game. They're like, what if we just, okay, the guy's an engineer, so like all of his weapons are kind of engineering weapons, and then they like design weapons that are impossible, just that are
Dude, I'm
pointedly
guilty.
severing.
Abe
you know?
and I are writing a cheesy action movie basically
Yeah.
right now, and we have a thing where a mirror breaks and he takes a big piece of glass and like throws it and it goes into a guy's neck. You can't throw a shard of glass hard
You have
enough
to
to
do
go
it.
in a guy's neck to kill him.
But it's like it's sitting right there begging for it.
Yeah, every movie
Yeah.
accepts it.
I'll be
No, I
right
mean-
there. I'll be right back. I gotta come
Okay.
back. Yeah.
All right, so while Adam escorts our next guest in,
Uh-huh.
I think we'll pass our final checkpoint. Fucking, I'm out of metaphors.
Don't know.
And then our last section, which is called Keep or Delete. And Tombo, I think I know your answer, but this is basically
Keep?
like, okay. all right.
100% keep
Trying
this
to
game.
stretch because of Adam.
No, I would keep this game
Final
because
thoughts.
it's a good survival horror game with a good engaging story that's legitimately interesting and creepy. It's told in an interesting way. It uses the fact that your character is an avatar that doesn't really speak for himself. It actually uses that aspect of it in a similar way to the way that BioShock does. It's got a good balance between not being too scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary, but you always have the tools that you need. The gameplay itself is really fun.
Yeah.
And the series continued on to be really good. I think Dead Space 2 and 3 are really good games. I honestly think Dead Space 3 is the scariest of the three.
And is it that he doesn't talk because the effects of the marker just give him that thing like Scott Adams had where he didn't talk for 6 years?
He
Yes.
talks in the second game a
Oh,
lot.
okay.
He speaks in
And the
2 and
third
3.
game, too.
Yeah,
Right.
he becomes a character in 2 and 3.
He talks at the end of 1, doesn't he?
No.
They reveal it. They
He
take,
takes
they
his
take
helmet
the
off,
bucket
but doesn't
off.
speak.
You know, yeah.
You're thinking of Samus again, as you usually are. Adam, keep or delete.
Constantly. Oh, I'd keep this. I would keep this game. I would delete any other Dead Space probably.
I'd keep all three.
Well, we all
gonna
have different
fight that
standards of
so
what we mean
hard.
by keep or delete. Like when you guys on, Crack Movie Club would talk.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what is the golden hard drive?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
What
yeah,
is?
yeah.
Everyone has a different rubric.
For sure.
I would keep it, and it might be one of the very, very few EA games I would keep. Which I.
It would probably be
No,
the
I-
only EA game I would keep.
I would. There's a
Knights
Mass
of the Old
Effect game.
Republic is.
There's got to be a Mass Effect game on this list somewhere.
Could make it in. Mass Effect would not make it in for me.
None of them.
No,
Not
none
two?
of them. No, Knights of the Old Republic. If I was going to do that,
Mass
that
Effect 2
line
is
of-
real good, but like,
We're gonna have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good. That's a great game.
I think Dead Space goes in.
Not
over that.
enough.
I would prefer Dead Space. To
Not
that.
Yeah.
enough full penetration when you get to have sex with your crew is what I would say about the Mass
That
Effect
is a real
series.
problem. That is a real problem.
Not enough planet cracking.
Release the planet Kraken. All right, well that's it. Thanks so much for joining us, Tom.
Of course, yeah.
Till next time.
Work complete.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!